football, the red zone is where a team has to make small adjustments to ensure victory. As you approach retirement, you also need to make small adjustments to ensure success. This is the Red Zone Retirement Program with registered investment advisor and enrolled agent John Mears of Mears Money Management.
Today on Red Zone Retirement Program, we're talking about hiring our kids or our spouse. Big opportunities, mistakes, possibly. As somebody who was in business with a family member a couple of times, it can be challenging. So, Coach, let's talk about it a little bit. Are there good ideas, bad ideas, things we need to learn from this? Let's break it down.
Yeah, this is a great topic, and this is one that's brought up not a lot, but enough, where this is something we need to discuss, because there are, in my opinion, fantastic opportunities out there for hiring your wife and also hiring your kids. And so we're going to talk about them today. We're kind of going to go over some of the pros and cons to all this.
Yeah, I mean, small business owners still employ the majority of people in the United States, and sometimes that's your own family, right? So we got a question, and what prompted this is we got a question in, so we're going to use this as our catalyst to break this down. So our question came in, and it's from Mike, and Mike says, I'm self-employed and run a small business, and I've heard some people say you can hire your spouse or even your kids to work for the business, and there could be tax benefits. So, Coach, I want to know, is that true? How does it work? And what are some things to look out for? Advantages, disadvantages? What do you think about Mike's question?
Well, there's certainly some advantages to that. Some of the tax advantages you have is you're kind of shifting income. If you hire your kids in your business, you are going to shift some income, if you're in a higher tax bracket, to the kids that are probably in a lower tax bracket.
Right.
So that's perfectly legal, perfectly legitimate. And if you have a good tax person, we can also figure out what that level of compensation can and should be for the sweet spot to make. So let's not talk about what type of work they're doing right now. Let's just talk about the salary or the wages that you're paying. Okay. So there is a level that you can pay that makes sense here. If the kids are under 18, there is no Social Security, Medicare. We call it FICA. And if they're under 21, there is no unemployment tax either. So there's kind of benefits there. So you can shift the income to the kids and not have to worry about Social Security, Medicare taxes. They're also paying tax at a lower rate. This doesn't really work with a wife in that regard, but there are other opportunities that we have with a spouse when it comes to the retirement planning and some of the other things we can do. So this kind of leads into what type of work the kids have to do. So I was getting ready to say
it's got to be like realistic, right? You can't just say, "Oh, I'm paying Johnny $20,000 to play on his Game Boy," right?
So I'm going to say yes and no. So what we really want to do, if there is bona fide work you can have your kids doing, like if they know how to manage your website and your blog or social media, that is an excellent thing to have them do. I had a realtor a few years ago, just had her daughter just do database entries, kind of maintain the database stuff. You can do that from wherever you're at. In this particular case is part of a college planning strategy. And so the daughter was actually away at school, and she just did grunt work for the real estate agent. Yeah. So there's things you can do on that. Now, I will also say, this is an idea I stole from another tax preparer who is a former IRS agent. And this is something that I can actually speak to with my own life, because my youngest stepdaughter actually does modeling. Modeling is very subjective. So the prices that you pay, the fees you pay for modeling can vary. Now, if your kids are on your website, if you have pictures of them on your website, if you use them in your promotional materials, you can pay them as models. Perfectly legal. You might want to have a little mini written contract. It doesn't have to be a 12-page in triplicate type of thing, but you can put on one page, I'm hiring Junior. He's going to be modeling some of some pictures that we're going to have on our website. So just kind of put that in writing. This is what we're going to do. And then again, what the fees, the modeling fees, and you might even research it to make it somewhat legitimate. All that being said, I've just gone through all the rules here and kind of maybe even bending a rule, if you will, in another area. I've never had this audited. Doesn't mean you're not going to be the first. If you're watching this, you might be the first person audited that I know.
Dot your I. Yeah, you want to dot the I's, cross the T's for sure.
Yes, but make sure that you have this all prepared. So there is room for nuance here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't lie awake at night worrying about this, but you want to have like you said, your I's dotted, T's crossed. Have an employment contract. They're all over the internet. Again, you just write one up for your kids. And
Yeah.
if you want them sweeping the shop floors, if you want them answering the phones, that's all the better. You can keep records of this stuff. If they're going to be in a situation where they're going to be working at your restaurant, you do want them clocking in and out like all the other employees do. You don't want to get too cute with it. But if you're a small business owner,
I can hear my daughter right now. She's going to be like, I want back pay for when I was 15 and you were using me as your, stand-in for filming purposes or whatever. And I'm going to be like, oh boy, here we go.
Well, there is. You could do that. That's, again, if you have it written down, that's generally what you can get by in an audit. That's one of the things you're going to ask for. Do you have an employment contract with your kids? I know that sounds absurd because it's your kid, but if you know what,
that might help the relationship too, though, Coach, right? It's like, hey, now this is what I'm expecting of you for your pay. And that makes it kind of easy. You signed it, so I don't want to hear, hey, I need to be on my phone with my friend or whatever,
Yes.
So
I have one of my clients, he has a fulfillment center and he has his kids work for him during the summertime. Okay. So that's something that he has them do. Again, like I mentioned, the realtor had her daughter doing database entries. I've had kids working in construction, all sorts of stuff. Again, if they're under 18, there's no Social Security, Medicare. And it's a great way to create, like you're describing, there's some sort of work ethic within the family. I could go through case after case after case of parents that hire their kids. It's a great way to get them involved in the business, if you will, if you want them to take over the business in the future. But also, if they're going away to college and you're helping to pay for the college, again, there's a great college strategy to help pay for the kids' tuition, because a lot of people make too much money to qualify for tuition credits. Well, if you are in that realm, you could actually pay your child enough to pay for their tuition through their salary. So you pay the kid, the kid pays the tuition. So those are things you can do.
Yeah, well, so let's talk about because it made me think of that when you were talking about maybe going to college. Let's talk about like retirement planning options, right? So one of the things that popped into my head was, the Secure Act 2.0 changes when if you were putting money away in a 529 and then they didn't wind up using it, now you can convert it to a Roth, but they got to have earned income, right? So what if you're owning a business and you want to, what do you do there? Like, so setting up a SEP or setting up a Roth, how does that work?
So there's a couple things here. First of all, you want to make sure that the kids, contribute to a Roth. That's this year the Roth maximum $7,000. So you want to make sure you're paying your kid, and you tell your kids straight out, I'm paying you, and then by paying you the $7,000, we're going to contribute to a Roth. Whether that is you making the kid pay for the Roth or just having enough earned income where you contribute to the Roth on the
because they do have to have it, right? They do have to have it but
they have to have earned income. There has to be earned income of $7,000. Now, let's just say you have a 401k. Here's an example I have with one of my clients that I'm thinking of right now. I've done this with other clients where the husband and the wife and the two kids are all involved in the business. And so the patriarch of the business, what he does is he pays his wife a salary. She contributes maximum to her 401k. He pays his kids enough salary where they can contribute to a 401k and also to their Roth. There's not a whole lot of money left over, but they're maximizing the 401k. Now, these kids have been working in the family business for several years. They're in college or almost out of college right now, and they have a couple $100,000 already in a nest egg in their 401ks because he has kind of forced his kids to contribute and do all this stuff. And they've done work for his business as well. Again, there's a little nuance into what type of work they can do, but he's been doing it. So they have both of the kids have Roth 401k, Roths that have grown in value, as well as 401ks. Great tool. It's something that you can always do with the kids. I think the Roth IRA is the easiest thing to do. If you don't go down the path of the 401k,
right? Yeah,
too much salary, $7,000, you can make your kids earn that. And the beatings are legal here, so you just make sure they get to work.
Right.
But that's an easy one to do, and I believe that's something you can do for the wife as well, where you do. The two of you, that's part of your future planning, is where you do the 401k, and then you can also do the mega backdoor Roth, where you have the after-tax 401k that you do with a wife. So if you're paying you and your wife enough salary, you're actually contributing between the two of you $70,000 each for several years. That's a great way to turbocharge your retirement as well.
Yeah, so or vice versa, right? If the wife's got the business, she can hire the husband. There's a really funny YouTube channel out there, Australian guy, and he's always making funny comments about videos that people just send in. And one of them he always jokes about is because now I think he calls him the technical boyfriend or something like that. And he's like the boyfriend or the husband's in charge of lugging the camera and doing this and doing that. So he's always kind of making fun of that. And I don't know why it made me think of that, but just kind of funny. But no matter really what the setup is, right? You can kind of you can hire for family business. What about some things like some other strategic nuances to think, insurance premiums or anything like that? Can that or education expenses, can that be done through the business as well?
Yeah, so there's a lot of nuance here, but you can do there is a educational reimbursement plans that businesses can have up to $5,250. You can do that. There is again some nuance, so make sure you talk to a qualified professional about this before you just start winging it here. But you can do that. So you can set up an educational reimbursement plan. The insurance plan, you can set up what we call a medical expense reimbursement plan, a MERP, if you will. You can set that up so the kids can be reimbursed for their medical expenses as well. So there's things you can do within the actual, confines of the businesses. I think one of the things that I mentioned a minute ago, which is also nice, is that you're also creating legacy. If you want the kids to take over your carpet and tile business or whatever, it's a great way to get them involved. They can still go to college. They can still get their accounting degrees and still take over your business because they'll know how to read a P&L. But that's something that you can do through all this is create the legacy, if you will, that you want to create
and the skin in the game, right? The skin in the family game, if you will. So I mean, I know a lot of advisors that do that. Their kids go off to college, but eventually they want to join the family business, or the advisor wants to join the family business because that's their succession plan, right? That's another piece of that planning as well. Let's talk about a few common mistakes, John, because you gave a lot of good, tax things to think about and various different financial things, but let's jump into a couple of common mistakes. Because again, you're dealing with family, right?
Yes.
So you mentioned one already, the documentation. You definitely got to dot your I's, right?
Yeah. Documenting is pretty easy. This is low hanging fruits. This is something you want to do. So even if you're kind of, I don't know, I hate to insult the people that are watching this, but if you're making it up as you go along, you can still at least write in it. I had a client years ago actually had a regular calendar, one of those folding flip calendars you get from your insurance guy or whatever. And what this person did is they literally wrote in red ink the daughter's hours and in blue ink the boys' hours. I think this person was making it up after the fact, but they came to me with this calendar with all the hours listed for the year. I don't know if that would hold up in an IRS audit, but it might. But at least there's some method of tracking there. Right. So you want to make sure you document. Other things you want to do is make sure that the entity choice matches what we're talking about here. So for the non-FICA, non-FUTA thing that we were talking about, unemployment and Social Security, that doesn't qualify if you're an S Corp or C Corp. So if you have a corporation or if you have an LLC with other partners, so the LLC only works if it's a husband and wife operating the LLC. As soon as you have another outsider, that blows that up as well. So you can't avoid that type of thing.
Sole proprietorship, can you?
Sole proprietorship is about what it is. And again, a family partnership with a husband and wife or an LLC husband and wife. What we call it. Okay. So technically a single member LLC, that sort of thing. Yeah. You can do that and avoid the Social Security taxes, Social Security, Medicare taxes, and the unemployment taxes. But so it matters what type of entity you have. But beyond that, and I would not let the tax tail wag the dog, because I still think even if you are having to pay Social Security taxes, if you're doing the Roth and you're doing a 401k or you're helping the kid pay for college and all that other kind of stuff, you're doing fine. Don't worry about the fact you're an S Corp.
Yeah, and don't overpay your kids either, right? Like I think sometimes that can be the temptation. Hey, this is, Dad, Mom, this is our family business. I should be making more than maybe a non-family member who's doing the same job, right? I know the temptation's there, but I just kind of feel like that. I mean, again, do what you want. It's your business, but that seems like that could send a red flag for issues, because it's not just the X's and O's, John. It's also maintaining your business and maintaining a good relationship, having a good standing within the community, within your employees, all that kind of stuff. I had a business relationship with my mom for years, and it got contentious. Like it put a strain on our relationship. At some point we had to make the decision to let it go, because it was like, is it worth, the personal relationship? And so that's a factor too.
Yeah, I have seen that, and that is something where it's important to have communication. It's also, like you say, overpaying the child is probably not a good idea. Underpaying isn't either, because they're working hard, especially if you want them to take over the business. You want to be fair, but also know that other people in the business know. So let's just say you do have a corporation, you do have your child working in the business, but you have other people that are also working in the business. If they see your kid driving around in a brand new BMW, where they're getting wages where they're only affording a used 2003 Toyota Corolla, it's probably not going to go over well with them. So you want to make sure that that appearances do matter. You want to make sure that the compensation is fair. I think that's all very appropriate, and that's just kind of common sense business 101.
I would think
you
so.
You want to make sure you're treating your child, and when they're, like I told my kids when I would coach them in sports, when we walk off the field, I'm dad. When I'm on the field, I'm coach. You guys understand that. So same thing in the business. When we walk out and we drive home, I'm dad. When we're in the business, I am the general manager or the owner. That's what we are. So we have to understand that there are boundaries for that. But I haven't seen too many problems, but I have seen a little bit of problems with that. So communication is still paramount with that, I think. When you're hiring your kids.
Yeah, it was. I think back to years ago, my dad used to have me do stuff for him. Granted, I was underage at the time, and it was more just to keep me occupied and give me little jobs to do or whatever. But he would still make those jokes with me. He's like, I'd say, "Hey, Dad, can I?" He's like, "What?" And I'd say, "Dad." And he's like, "What?" And I'd say, "Boss, can I?" Can I take a break, or can I go play a game or whatever it was? And he's like, "Sure." So
I got a break when you were hired. What do you mean?
That's right. Yeah. I think he was, he had me do little silly stuff like you said, like sweep the driveway or something like that. But look, I mean, it's a challenge certainly, but there's some tax things that you can look at. There's a lot of different stuff that can be advantages and disadvantages to having, loved ones or family members in a business. Yeah, go ahead, Coach.
I would like to add one more thing here. There are a lot of frugal people watching this, I'm sure. The one thing you should do is hire a payroll service, whether you use QuickBooks Payroll, Gusto, whatever you're going to use. I don't care, ADP, whatever, Paychex. I know it costs money. But hire a payroll service, because otherwise things will get mucked up. I'll use stronger language than that, but the scrupability factor is huge. So make sure you hire a payroll service. Yeah, they charge you $50 or $100 a month or whatever. Go with the cheapest one. I don't care. But hire a payroll service. Do not do this on your own.
Yes, it'll definitely save you some stress as well. So great advice. Last little tidbit there from Coach. As always, if you got some questions, need some help, how to set things up, how to get things running smoothly, whatever the case might be, how to plan for retirement, how to plan for your finances, whatever the case is, John is here to help. So reach out to him. We've got the links in the show descriptions below. They've also been popping up here on the screen as we've been going. So if you need some help, reach out to Coach at mearsmoney.com. That's mearsmoney.com. And don't forget to subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, and of course, the YouTube. Subscribe to us on the YouTube. It's a whole brand new service that we're doing, right? So thanks, Coach, for breaking it down as always, my friend.
You're welcome. It's a lot of fun. Thanks.
We'll see you next time. You're on Red Zone Retirement Program, Simple Investing, Smart Future with Coach John Mears. I really kind of like you. We're going to have to go with that. John has a couple of free books, Diffuse and Tax-Free Retirement in California, that reveal exactly how you can experience zero taxes in retirement and overcome the IRS lien on your 401k, IRA, and 403b, which could threaten your future lifestyle. These are complimentary, so all you have to do to pick these up 100% free is just stop by rescuemyretirement.net. That's rescuemyretirement.net. Fill in the basic info and he'll ship those out to you immediately. That's rescuemyretirement.net for a copy of Diffuse and Tax-Free Retirement in California.
Advisory services offered through Mears Money Management, Inc., an RIA registered in the states of California and Texas. California Department of Insurance License number 0685203.